Right now, the Knicks have to be in the mindset of adding as many quality pieces as they can in order to attract that big piece. We don't need to bring in the big piece, then try to build around it. We need to have the structure already in place. And if we have that structure already in place, teams are going to be more receptible, or players are going to be more receptible when it comes to coming over to the Knicks and actually, investing in the franchise with their career. Hey, how's it going? I'm Keith here at Sports Vibes TV, and in this video, I'm going to be reviewing the cap situation around the league for a few teams and seeing which ones could be potential trade partners. There are rumors around the league suggesting that the Knicks are open and willing to bringing in higher contracted or higher salaried players, as long as the team that's shipping them away is including, young, promising players and or, draft capital. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see or seek out which teams could be potential trade partners, and I might actually carry some of these, players over into my realistic rebuild series. I have a playlist for you guys. If you haven't checked it out already, I suggest you guys check it out and let me know what you think. Also, if you want to, you guys can subscribe and hit the bell icon. That way you're notified whenever I drop new rebuild videos or if I drop any other new Knicks news. So with that being said, let's jump right into it and see what the cap situation is like for some of the teams across the league. All right, so let's look. So this is just having the teams listed. We are going to order them in luxury tax space. Now, when it comes to the luxury tax, a lot of teams want to avoid the luxury tax because the longer you are in the luxury tax, the steeper the penalties. They have something called a repeater tax. If you're in the luxury tax, if I'm not mistaken, for 2 or 3 years, your bill, increases dramatically. So a lot of teams try to get below the luxury tax threshold, so just to make sure they're not in it for repeated years. All right, so let's see. Right at the top of the list, we have the Golden State Warriors. I don't really see them moving the first overall pick. Well, no, they don't have the first overall. Minnesota does. I don't see them moving the second pick because they're not trying to get back under the luxury tax threshold. They're actually trying to compete. So I'm expecting them to actually try to move that pick for a player that's going to help them now. So I don't necessarily see the Warriors as a prime destination or a prime trade partner for the New York Knicks. If we go down to the next team, you have the Philadelphia 76ers. They're $16 million over the cap projected for 2021. Now, the Philadelphia 76ers could potentially be a trade partner, but me personally, I would rather not, because if we were to trade with the Philadelphia 76ers, the team or the players that we would end up receiving aren't necessarily players that I think the Knicks should be targeting. You have Al Horford, who still has a very large contract. He's not a player that I see getting better in the future, and I don't think the Knicks should be saddled with the remaining 2 or 3 years on Al Horford's contract. The same could be said for Tobias Harris, who's actually, much younger, but I don't necessarily see him getting better throughout the duration of his contract. So those two players are the most likely players to be moved. You also have Joel Embiid and you also have Ben Simmons, but I don't think it's too likely that the Philadelphia 76ers would trade those two players, especially within the division. I don't think the Philadelphia 76ers would want to move Ben Simmons and have to deal with him 4 times a year. I would expect them to maybe move Ben, if anything, maybe to the Timberwolves. That's a trade I would see lining up for the Philadelphia 76ers. But as you can see, the Philadelphia 76ers are one of those teams that are up against it when it comes to luxury tax. Now, the next team that we have below them, the Boston Celtics. This is a team that I very well could see the Knicks reaching out to. Yes, they are within the same division, same conference, you know, which is going to counter the argument I said with the 76ers about trading within the division. But I don't think the Boston Celtics typically or look at, Gordon Hayward, who I think would be the trade target with the Boston Celtics. I don't see them looking at, Gordon Hayward as a player that's going to come back and bite them in the butt if they were to move on from him. Gordon Hayward has one more year on his contract. If I'm not mistaken, he's owed right around $34 million. And the Boston Celtics have 3 first-round picks. If the Celtics can give us some assortment of whether it be the 14th, the 30th, and if I'm not mistaken, they also have the 31st. I'm not exactly sure. Let me actually, while I'm on here, let me check. Boston Celtics draft picks 2020. I know they definitely have the 14th. Let's see what else they have. They're doing trades. I don't give a damn about no trade. Let me see. Let's just see. So Boston has 14, 26, and 30. So yeah, so like I was saying, Boston could potentially be a trade target. They have the 14th pick, they have the 26th pick, and they also have the 30th pick. So if Boston is willing to unload some, package, including any 3 of those picks, I would not be adverse to the Knicks reaching out and doing a deal with the Boston Celtics. That actually would be something I would look forward to. You would have Gordon Hayward. Yes, he's making 34 mil. And yes, he's an injury-prone player. But at least it would give more of a clear direction for the New York Knicks, showing that they aren't necessarily looking to be title contenders in 1 year. And they're actually going to look to build toward being a contender because they're going to get a plethora of draft picks. They're also going to get Gordon Hayward, who only has 1 year left on his contract. So that means he'll be able to move on during that 2021 offseason when there are going to be a lot of big name free agents. So what we can do is we can bring in more draft picks, continue to build from within, right? And then we can have a culture or a core to present to these free agents in the 2021 free agency class. So that is a team that I do think the Knicks could potentially trade with. Another player on the Celtics that the Knicks could possibly acquire is Kemba Walker. I grew up with Kemba. That's my guy. I'm proud of him. But that is a deal that I would not want the Knicks to make. Kemba is owed a large amount of money, remaining on his contract for another 3 years. And to be honest, Kemba Walker is a little shorter than me. I just barely hit 6 foot. So Kemba's like 5'10 and a half, 5'11, and his game is predicated on his athleticism and his speed. So, I don't necessarily see him getting better as well as that contract, as he plays throughout his contract. So I'm not sure if I want the Knicks to reach out and necessarily be on the hook for the remaining portion of that contract. Yes, it would shore up our point guard, position or the hole we have at point guard. But I don't necessarily think Kemba is the player type that we need to actually bring into New York. But, shout out to him. Best of luck to him in all his endeavors in Boston. Another team to look at, not necessarily as a trade partner, is the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I'm saying look at the Nets because if you can see, they're up against it when it comes to the luxury tax as well. And, yes, their owner has a deep pocket. Their owner is Joe Tsai. He's a co-owner of Alibaba, and they have the money to be players when it comes to being in the luxury tax, space. But due to the financial turmoil that the NBA is dealing with when it comes to COVID, and also when it comes to the beef that they had with China earlier on in the season. I don't know if the Nets want to necessarily overextend into that luxury tax space. And they're going to have to do that if they're going to want to bring in Joe Harris. So the Knicks should keep an eye on that situation, because if the Nets decide they don't want to, dive into those deep waters when it comes to luxury cap space, the Knicks could very well swoop in and pick up Joe Harris. So that's another team to keep your eye on, the Brooklyn Nets. And as you go further down, a lot of these teams aren't necessarily as strapped when it comes to luxury tax, but there are other teams here that do have, they're up against it when it comes to just the regular soft cap. Because the way the NBA works, there's a soft cap, there's a hard cap. The soft cap, you're allowed to blow through it to resign your own players. And then you have a hard cap where you cannot go, past that figure. So as we're looking, we also have the Houston Rockets. Remember, I made a video, which I'll link up above. The Houston Rockets are in salary cap hell. And what makes it worse is they're in salary cap hell, and their owner is also being beat over the head due to the coronavirus. So the Houston Rockets may be big time sellers, but the thing is, the only asset I think most people would want would be James Harden. And I highly doubt they're going to move James Harden to the Knicks. And the most likely player to be traded from that team would be Brickbrook. And, I've made that video before. I want no parts of Brickbrook on the Knicks, honestly. And you have the Bucks. The Bucks aren't going to make any moves when it comes to offloading quality players. I'm not sure if they are going to try to, move other pieces, because they're trying to be contenders and they're trying to appease Giannis. And I don't see them moving away any quality pieces. Most of their draft picks are later on in the actual draft. So I don't see them making too big of a deal trying to unload players. I see them making moves to acquire bigger players to put around Giannis. So you can take the Bucks off the list for the most part. And then here go the Indiana Pacers. That was a team I recently made a video on about Oladipo. I'll link that one for you guys as well. The Indiana Pacers are very close to the luxury tax, and they're a small market team. So I'm fully expecting them to make some sort of move. And that's why I said an Oladipo move. His price has come down dramatically based on what Brian Windhorst is saying. So if we can get Victor Oladipo for a relatively, cheap price, I really don't see a problem with that. Victor Oladipo has shown when healthy to be a quality piece. And right now, the Knicks have to be in the mindset of adding as many quality pieces as they can in order to attract that big piece. We don't need to bring in the big piece, then try to build around it. We need to have the structure already in place. And if we have that structure already in place, teams are going to be more receptible, or players are going to be more receptible when it comes to coming over to the Knicks and actually, investing in the franchise with their career. So let me know what you guys think on some of these teams that I pointed out that don't necessarily have as much luxury cap flexibility or salary cap flexibility, and could be trade partners that the Knicks reach out to help and assist. Once again, if you like the video, I would just ask for you to like the video and share. Once again, I'm Keith, host at Sports Vibes TV, and I'm out.